Hello and welcome back to the DFS Fantasy Premier League podcast show, etc. Brought to you, of course, by VIP-bet.com. I'm your host, Kevin DeVries. Joining me in that box right there is my good friend and partner in crime, Rob Langevin. Now, Rob, there is a huge match in football, in the Premier League, and in most other fantasy formats. Tottenham-Arsenal is the early match on Saturday. Obviously, early matches do not go on the DraftKings slates. My question for you to start off with is, are you a little bit saddened that we don't get a big matchup like that on the slate, or do you think it could actually be better because it forces people to some more obtuse options?
Well, it's kind of multi-tasks there because yes, you want the players that would be DFS products that you'd want on your team, available for selection. But when these games happen, when there's bigger clubs facing a bigger club, people don't usually, they kind of lend a blind eye to that fixture, thinking that they're probably going to neutralize each other out and nothing good is going to come from that. Teams like Arsenal and Spurs, they're very neutral when it comes to attacking, but on defense is where Spurs, I think, makes up the difference. So I think by not having Spurs on the slate as a defensive team, taking them away by them playing Arsenal is a knock to the slate. But when you look at the slate with the 7 fixtures on it, you're basically getting the best of everything else that is available in the Premier League this week. You have United defense, you have City defense, you have Chelsea defense, you have a Liverpool attack. There's neutralizing factors that are going throughout this whole slate. So by having 2 top teams play each other, not available for selection, I don't think it's taking away from it all. It's just fun to have more teams of better fantasy caliber for selection. And unfortunately, as a 7:30 start in the U.S., it's kind of tough.
Yeah, 12:30 in the UK. Yeah, do you think that'll impact the final price as much, or do you think since we have so many other big clubs on the slate that it'll still be pretty high regardless?
I don't think it would affect it that much. I think those players have their values regardless. Alexis Sanchez is going to be Alexis Sanchez. Kane's going to be Kane. Eriksen's going to be Eriksen. Ali's going to Ali. And from there, it'll just matriculate down. They're not really facing a really worse opponent. They're kind of, like I said, they're neutralizing each other out. Like if you take a look at some of the Man City prices compared to what Leicester is, because they are on this slate, it's an interesting fact. Just look at some of the Leicester players that are, quality fantasy options, just not this week because they're playing against City. Their value point and price is just way off because they're playing such a powerhouse in City.
Yeah, definitely good stuff there. We have a lot of matches to get through, so we will just jump into it now. I'll start off talking about Huddersfield versus Bournemouth. So for my first, everybody is kind of leaning Bournemouth right now, industry-wise, which is understandable. There are names that are familiar to people, but this is not the same Bournemouth team that was kicking around last year. I mean, you have obviously the wing backs. You have Charlie Daniels, Adam Smith, both of them highly owned last year. Neither of them have done better than have at least 3 single-digit performances in the last 5 matches. Both of them do. Even Steve Cook, last week's hero, I suppose it was 2 weeks ago now, that was his first double-digit scoring performance this season. So this is not a unit that you want to rely on. They aren't fun attacking the way they used to be. They aren't defending the way they used to be. I think a lot of us assumed that putting Begovic and Ake back in that team would just fix their defense. Like, it was pretty good at the start of last season before they lost Ake. Has not been the case. So I'm actually looking to the other side of the pitch. Now, the Huddersfield defenders aren't exactly setting the world alight either, but Jonas Lossell has been. He currently has the second most clean sheets in the Premier League right now. He's still top 10 in saves, and I think he deserves to have a lot more credit. He's averaging 11.3 points over his last 3 matches, but is still somehow only at 4,200, up against the second worst attack in the Premier League. It is very, very strange. I think this is very much, it's not even that recent, but recency bias. Everybody thinks of Bournemouth as this team that's like, able to get out and play football. You had Josh King scoring goals. You had the wingbacks contributing both in attack and defense. None of that is happening right now, and I can't stress that enough. This is not the Bournemouth team that you remember. My dislike is that second worst Bournemouth attack. It has just been a revolving door up front for them between Defoe and Josh King and Callum Wilson and Benikafobe, and none of it has worked. So I'm very much off them, and because of that, I think in a slate where you have a lot of big clubs, there might be a lot of sneaky value at Huddersfield, specifically in net. You can go with the defenders, but even when they keep clean sheets, I mean, Zonka is obviously their best real-life defender, but he's only getting like 1 to 5. which isn't really worth your time. But I think Lussel at 4,200 is an absolute steal, especially when you're trying to fit in so many of those big name, big profile players that are at the bigger clubs that we'll talk about here in a little bit. As for score, I think it's going to be a boring 1-0. Could be a 0-0, but I think Huddersfield get on the scoreboard. The Poitras's cooled down a little bit of late. Mounier could do something. Oh, also, likely no Aaron Moy for them. Just traveled back from Australia today as we record. So the likelihood that he's going to play Saturday for me is fairly low. Although they don't really have anybody to replace him with. But regardless, don't think he'll be a big factor in this one.
Yeah, both these teams are limited, going forward. I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said that the revolving door in Bournemouth's attack just hasn't paid dividends at all. Jermaine Defoe is just a score or nothing fantasy option, especially in DFS. Their best fantasy, DFS player, Junior Stanislas, is not probably going to play in this game either. So, from that standpoint, I don't trust Bournemouth and their low-ranked offense. Just it doesn't make sense. Somebody's going to get a goal in this game. It's going to be 1-0. I can't tell you who or what other end of the coin it's going to be.
Yeah, don't watch this one. There are a lot of other matches on at this time. Look elsewhere. We'll come to you now talking about Swansea versus Burnley. This also could be a defensive matchup, but Burnley obviously performing well. There were reports that Sean Dyche had already agreed to leave to go to Everton. That hasn't happened, so now he's still there. Swansea are a mess. What side do you think will win here?
This is like one of those games where you look at and you see the bigger teams on the slate. Like I mentioned before, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, United. That's where your offense is going to be generated. This game is basically your defensive pickings game. This is basically defense to table. If farm to table had a DFS option, this would be defense to table. Just look at some of the prices on some of these guys. Federico Fernandez, 2,700. Alfie Mawson, 2,900. Ben Mee, 3,400. You're getting all your value points here on defense from this game. This is the game that you want to center in, hone in on, and get all your savings from. If you pick one defender from both teams here, you'll probably not spend more than 6,200 on both defenders, and that leaves you tons of shopping options with so many days till Christmas on the DFS slate this week that you'll totally save money. On my dislike, I'm going to go to Tammy Abraham. Swansea just doesn't do enough for me. Yes, he has been scoring goals, but he does it not consistently. He does it basically scores, then disappears. Assists, then disappears. Yeah. Scores 2 goals, then completely disappears. Tammy Abraham at his price at 6,000, you're not really getting any value point there. Yes, you're probably buying into a differential, but a differential for Swansea to score, they don't do it often enough that you could bank on him returning any value at 6,000. Score-wise, this game is going to be boring as boring could be, like you just mentioned with Huddersfield, Bournemouth. I'm calling 0-0 on this.
Yeah, I think 0-0 is a very real possibility. On your Tammy Abraham shout, Swansea, the fewest chances created in the Premier League this season, which is exactly to your point, that it happens, but it doesn't happen often, which makes him
click on.
Yeah, makes him a very tough own. I think 0-0 is a good shout here, especially with the fact that half of Ireland's squad is in Burnley's squad. Disappointing, played late as well. I just think that could, I don't want to get too far into narrative, but I think it could be hurting a little bit there. But yeah, I agree with that. Everton, Crystal Palace, technically Crystal Palace versus Everton. It's at Selhurst, I guess is my point here. My may come as a bit of a surprise to people, but it's going to be Johan Cabaye. It may come as a surprise because, Palace have largely been garbage in both attack and defense. And Cabaye has been a disappointment ever since coming back to the Premier League for Palace. But his recent performances have been crazy. He actually leads the league in both total crosses and accurate crosses over the last 5 matches, with 23, which is pretty dang impressive.
It's a good number.
Yeah, it's very impressive from him. I think he is a surprising option. I think that's why his price is still down at 5,800. As a midfielder, he doesn't really rely on the finished product to get his points, because if he's whipping in that many crosses, it's like wingbacks. How they can lose their clean sheet, they can lose their win, they can fail to assist, but they can still get you up in that 10-point range, and he can definitely do that right now, as evidenced by his last 2 outings, which were 19 points and 15 points respectively. So I think Johan Cabaye is a sneaky option. Also, Wilfried Zaha, currently playing as their striker. He's top 5 in touches in the box over that same period, and is going up against the 3rd worst defense in the league. So there's no reason to think that the English/Ivorian can't get on the score sheet this week. My dislike is going to be Gylfi Sigurdsson. I don't really want to bash him too hard because his price drop reflects his drop in effectiveness. Because, he used to be in the 10s and now he's at 7,300. But I still think that's too expensive. He's not top 5 in any meaningful creative metrics. And I don't think it's really going to get better until Everton get a legitimate striker. I mean, Nias has done his job well and is actually a pretty decent DFS bargain. But do you want to be counting on Nias's finishing for Sigurdsson's points? No, probably not. So yeah, unfortunately, Sigurdsson, it's just not now. Quick aside, shifting to real football, do you think Everton addressed the striker problem in January? Like, they have to, right?
I think they bring in somebody. I don't know if it's going to be. I think they probably bring in 2 players. They'll bring in an immediate guy who's probably going to completely flail and just not do anything, and they'll bring in a secondary guy who's probably the better option. And I'm not arguing. I think Omar Nias is their guy. I just think that based on his history with the club, basically how he was put aside at the beginning of the year, told he wasn't part of the initial 23 members of the traveling squad. Kind of, he's got like an outward place with the squad. I kind of like Nias this week at 5,800, to be honest with you. When we get to our teams, you'll see my appreciation for him. But yeah, Everton definitely need an out-and-out striker.
Yeah, I honestly think that this could be just another drop in the bucket for Everton's failures. I think it could be Palace 1-0. This Everton defense cannot keep people out. I'm not confident that they'll score even against the leaky Crystal Palace. Is it possible that your boy DCL will come on and score a late goal, or Nias will get in something cheeky? Sure. Neither one of these teams I think is going to score more than one, though. I'm going to go with a sneaky... You and I used to like those Palace defenders. I'm going to go for a sneaky clean sheet for them. I'm going to go 1-0 Crystal Palace.
This game is all about trying to find value with the creativeness players. You're looking at the Zahas. Love your tout for Cabaye. Another guy, when we get to our teams, you'll see he was already in there. You're looking for guys who don't score or assist. You're basically looking for accumulators in the stat categories that DFS offers you. Zaha does that a ton with his take-ons and such like that. Cabaye does it with his crosses. Those are the guys who offer great value points. This game is a great value point game. Yeah. Basically mix and match with your City, Liverpool, Chelsea, United guys. But yeah, score-wise, I think there could be more like sneaky goals. Both teams are just awful defensively. True. And I think it's going to reflect in that. But they don't really have enough viable options outside of the known quantities that you have there. Zaha, Cabaye, even Nias. But there's going to be some goals in there. I'm going to say it's going to be 2-1 Crystal Palace. Interesting.
Bringing up both of their struggles. If I'm not mistaken, both of them are bottom 5 in both attack and defense. So in theory, like, something has to happen.
It's like, hey, push, I'm shove.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a mess. Let's make a small wager. I owe you infinite amounts of beer from bets we've made from other shows that we've done.
I'll say there'll be 3 goals in the game. You'll take the under.
I'm not saying on that. I'm saying Nias and Cabaye are the same price. Who do you think finishes with more points?
Cabaye, easily. Because crosses are guaranteed and goals are not.
Yeah. All right, we don't need to make a bet then, because I also think Cabaye is the way to go here.
Because Cabaye has been very Cresswellian.
He has. He sure has. Cresswellian. That's good. Like Orwellian. All right, on to you next. Talking about City versus Leicester. This looks like arguably the most exciting match on this slate. Both teams are going to get out to attack in this one. City, obviously without Otamendi. Maybe Vardy can attack them up the middle, make things a little interesting there. What do you think we'll see in this one?
The thing with this game is, I know you scream excitement, and we're a day and a half away from the kickoff of this game, and I can't express enough discomfort for this game because we don't know what City's going to do. There is no Otamendi. Aguero does have a sickness, and he may not play. Raheem Sterling is a question mark for this game. Yep. So basically, this is a check your lineups before you do anything with your roster. Yeah, you could put placeholders in there for, the prices of De Bruyne and Silva and Jesus and Aguero and easily transform your roster to pivot them and bring them in. But I would love to say that I love Leroy Sané in this game at 9,400. I love Gabriel Jesus at 9,800. But until I know what Pep Guardiola and his rotation of goodness is going to be doing and bringing us, I can't actually tell you to be like, buy into this guy, because we don't actually know. Me and Kevin, we're in the know 7 days out of the week with EPL news and that. And Kevin could probably tell you that he has no idea what City are going to line up with right now. Yes. Besides maybe 4 guys. I know David Silva is going to play. David Silva's going to play. That's it. Yeah. But other than that, everything else is a gamble. And basically, this is a big pivot game. If he's not playing, pivot to this guy. If he's not playing, pivot to this guy. You know, if Sané's playing, go to somebody else cheaper. Go to Fernandinho, or if you need cheaper value there. But from that standpoint, check your lineups. This is the key slate of the whole game, whole week. Make sure that the guys that you want to play are in the game, because if Aguero's not playing, it's a trickle-down effect. It goes to Jesus. If Jesus, isn't playing and Aguero is, it trickles down to Sané as the secondary, Kevin De Bruyne as Silva, and so far down the trough. Guys I don't like, I just mentioned him, Aguero. You can't really make your roster right now and have him comfortably in there. At 10,800, there's no way
your
that you
util
can
is like $2,000. I tried.
There's no way that you can fit him into your team right now and then form a team and then later on be like, okay, I'll change to this guy, because it probably isn't going to happen, because you're stealing so much money from having Aguero in there. Your other parts are going to be affected by that. So kind of avoid Sergio Aguero in your initial lineups. Yeah. Wait till the lineups come out.
You can make a late one if he's in there.
Yeah, completely. Throw a dart with Aguero in there. Score wise, this game is going to be fun to watch. Like you said, no Otamendi is going to open up the middle of the pitch for a lot of people. John Stones does not have the pace to keep up with Vardy. Not many people do on this planet, to be honest with you. But yeah, City's going to get their goals. I think Leicester get one. I'll say 3-1 City.
Yeah, I think 3-1 sounds perfect. And your call for 4 outfield players that you can lock down is very accurate. At this point, it's basically Walker, Fernandinho, Silva, and Sané. Those are the ones that I think are starting. But the rest of those positions are all up for grabs. I guess Delph is pretty locked in at left back.
And Stones is it.
Because Otamendi's out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think 3-1's an excellent shout there. Agree with you that I do think Leicester get on the board. Also, just a sneaky gut feel on Demarai Gray, who's played very well since winning his way back into that team. And by winning his way back into that team, I mean getting a new manager.
This is his skill. This is a game where his floss his skills, because the middle of the pitch is going to be wide open, because City's going to be high pressing. Leicester's going to have enough going forward that I think the middle is going to be way open, which is why I think this game is probably going to be controlled by guys like De Bruyne and Silva. So if you're looking for secondary or third options there, they're the best. They're the best of them, because I think they can do enough.
Yeah, agreed there. Next up, Liverpool versus Southampton. And Rob, I know I've talked to you about this already this week, but Alberto Moreno is somebody I like at 5,900. There are obviously concerns with owning Liverpool defenders, like price, the fact they're not that good, etc.
Well, they're playing at home.
They are. They're playing at home. They currently have the second best home defense in the Premier League right now, which may come as a surprise to many people. 2 consecutive home clean sheets here. And I just think that Moreno is a really sneaky guy. He did come out with a quote that's a little bit calmed my hype on him, where he said he's changed his perspective, that when he came to the Premier League, he was only thinking attack, attack, attack. From a fantasy perspective, you like that. I would like for him to be thinking that. But he does have 2 assists in his last 2 Champions League matches. His creative stats are creeping up. Not top 5 in anything total, but top 5 among defenders, which is the position he plays, which is always fun. He is starting consistently. Has seemingly won this job over both Milner and Andy Robertson. So Moreno at 5,900 against the Southampton team that has the 3rd worst attack in the Premier League. Second worst is Bournemouth, for those with memories from the start of the show. I think it's going to be fine for Liverpool. I think a clean sheet's a decent chance, and I think they could also get an assist in there as well, because nobody's really going to pin him back on that right wing. Maybe if Redmond decides to turn it on, but he hasn't done that basically all season, so no reason to be scared of it now. My dislike, it could be any number of Southampton players. We'll just key in on Dusan Tadic. Like Sigurdsson has been bumped all the way down to 5,500 after years of being in the 7s. He is not in the top 50 in the league in chances created right now. It's horrible. The attack is 15th in the league, which is obviously something that you don't like. 15th to 18th, they're all tied. But there just don't seem to be any signs of improvement on the horizon. I mean, we saw Gabbiadini attempt to fire Italy to the World Cup with failed results. I don't know why Charlie Austin hasn't really been given a chance back into this team yet. They've tried it with Buffal, who's a hyper-talented player. He had a great solo goal that could be in the goal of the year conversation come the end of it, but just doesn't do enough consistently. Redmond doesn't do enough consistently. They haven't decided on their midfield 3. It's just rotating with like Davis and Ward-Prowse, and then Mario Lemina, who doesn't really offer much from a fantasy sense, very Dembele-like in his importance to the team, but not really mattering in fantasy. It's just not a good time for Southampton. The defense has been getting better. They have climbed up into the top 10. But, man, you just really cannot trust this Southampton team right now. I'm going to go Liverpool 2-0.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Southampton has zero going forward. Redmond is just not a shadow of what he was last year, and that was a shadow of what we thought he would be.
What he was at Norwich. Yeah.
Exactly. They have nothing. Gabbiadini is a failure. Austin deserves more time, I believe, but I don't think he'll get it.
Yeah.
Liverpool is just going to attack. I'm hoping that Bertrand and Cedric are resting their legs right now because I think Salah is going to run them off the grid.
Yeah.
Based on this, Liverpool has the goods in this game. They're playing against a Southampton team that's scuffling, basically in defense and attack. They're trending the wrong way in each of those. And from a Southampton team that is usually known for, fantasy defense, this is not a good matchup for them. Liverpool take this clean and easy. I think it's 3-0.
Fair enough. Also, Firmino getting a little bit better lately.
Yep.
I know we love to hate him, but it's gone a little too far at the moment.
He's getting a little more fluent with his movement coming through the middle. He's not just standing there waiting for the ball. He's actually coming to get the ball.
Yeah, and with no Mane, he might get more space playing on the left. And I know people inherently might think that it's bad if Firmino isn't playing up front for you. Not exactly the case. On to you talking about your beloved Blues, who are playing West Bromwich Albion, who are another team that's failing to do things at both ends of the pitch of late. I assume you're feeling a little confident heading into this one?
Yeah, the reason I'm confident is because of one person. It's N'Golo Kante, which makes everybody on the Chelsea defense look shiny and new. They are not the value point price-wise. Look at the prices of Azpilicueta. I know Alonso is qualifies as a midfielder. He's right around 6,000. But Chelsea defenders, when we know who they are, whether it be Christensen, would it be Cahill, would it be, Bakayoko or whatever. I know he's qualified as a midfielder as well. But, Rudiger, whoever those guys are, they're great value points because I think there's no chance that West Brom even sniff a goal here unless there's some fluke happenstance happens. I know that's pretty bold. That's bold of me to say, but Chelsea looks the better of this by 1,000% here. But the problem with Chelsea is they're going to be great defensively. They have Morata up top. They need that guy in the middle that's going to shine out for them. And we talked previously in our other podcast about Cesc Fabregas this week. And at 6,500, I think if he gets a play, I think he's going to have a little bit more free range in motion, especially with N'Golo Kante there, so that he's allowed to, be creative, set up Morata, set up Hazard, set up Pedro, whoever the other, forward more players than he is on the pitch. I think he's going to take advantage of that. And you're going to be looking at a good crossing game, maybe an assist or two, maybe he gets a cheeky goal. I'm not saying they're going to blow them out, but Chelsea's definitely going to be on the top notch of the scorecard here. Players I don't like, all West Brom players. Look at the teams on this slate. There are so many middling teams that you could find better value on and actually score than West Brom. I'd even be more interested in Everton secondary players, Crystal Palace secondary players, Huddersfield secondary players, Bournemouth secondary players. The value points are all very similar, but when push comes to shove or when you want to pick names out of a hat, I'd hope that West Brom is the last team that I pick guys from. Going into this game, Chelsea's going to run this. I don't think West Brom scores. I'll say 2-0 Chelsea, just to keep it low scoring so I can make up a cool point total at the end.
Yeah, I think this could easily be 3 or more. I mean, if Chelsea score somewhat early and West Brom get drawn out, which, by the way, they've lost 1-0 before without ever coming out to attack, which is incredible that Pulis is that.
Pulis bust.
Oh, my gosh. I can't wait for Pulis to leave this club because there are so many interesting players at that club right now, and he is just making them all useless. So, yeah, I think this one could get out of hand, honestly, for Chelsea. Could it just be 1-0 late? Sure. But I agree with you. I think Chelsea could really have their way in this one. I'll wrap up with Manchester United versus Newcastle. The players I like are defenders. I mean, obviously, Manchester United's defenders have much higher clout. It'll be really interesting to see who fills in for Phil Jones. Fills in. That wasn't even on purpose. Because whoever that is could be a low-price, sneaky guy. I really hope it isn't just Blind that they play in centrally because he has a very high price for no gosh darn reason.
Yeah. 6,100. That's crazy.
Why? I really don't understand what they're doing there.
It's because his last couple games when he played for the Dutch national team, he went crazy.
True. Yeah, an assist and a goal. Yeah. Shouldn't matter though.
Shouldn't.
If it's Twanzebe, like that would be
That'd be
like
awesome.
one of those like
That'd be awesome.
beloved fantasy moments.
Darmian's got a good cheeky price too, but he played for
True.
Italy, so I don't know if his legs are underneath him.
Yeah, or he's just still sobbing into his prosecco. Yeah, I think United do win this one, but I think Newcastle's defense could also be fairly sneaky as long as Lascelles is fit. Not because Lascelles is the best option, but because he's kind of the anchor of that defense, and if he isn't there, there could be issues. But I don't really believe in this United attack. I mean, I was looking through them. I can bring it back on this util page. But Lukaku hasn't been firing. He has more assists than goals over the last 5 matches. Rashford and Martial are fighting for the same spot. You can't trust Mkhitaryan. Pogba, if best case, makes the bench in this match. And now you're already to Matt Ritchie, who's somebody from Newcastle. Blint is a defender who might not play. Mata's been playing inconsistently when he's even been playing. And now you're to the defenders, who I mentioned are the ones I actually like. So yeah, I just don't like this. Obviously, the Newcastle attacking players, Joselu probably going to start, although some talk that they might start trying to get Mitrovic more involved, which they should, because Joselu can't hit the broadside of a barn, or some equally silly analogy for wherever you're from watching this now. But yeah, I'm just not all for it. Richie might be able to get his points, again, kind of cross-heavy since he takes the set pieces. But really, I think if you wanted to pick just about any defender from this slate, I wouldn't begrudge you for it one bit. Oh, as for a result, it could be 0-0, honestly.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's
I'm
gonna
going to
be
say
low scoring.
0-0 because it's already Mourinho playing at home where he can set up and just do his thing. I don't think Newcastle are going to test them much, which isn't going to force United to get forward either. I think it's going to be one of those matches where you get to like the hour mark at 0-0 and then both teams are like, oh, we should have been doing stuff now. Of course, United could run away with it like 5-0 or something, but I'm gonna keep it low. I'm gonna say a crazy speculative 0-0.
Yeah, I don't trust United's attack at all. Lukaku 9 touches in the box in his last 4 games.
Ooh.
I know you say he's got assists to back that up, but there's nothing there I trust. Mkhitaryan is just falling off the wagon. You know, anybody else there creatively is just blah. Prices are just ridiculous for what United's going to encounter here. I don't see them putting in more than 1. I'll say it's 1-0 United.
Cool. All right, we are going to quickly run through our teams and get out of here because we're almost at the half-hour mark already. Rob, who you got?
We'll start up top. I have Zaha and Omar Niasse for Everton. I think he is the guy that Everton should look at for the next coming games to actually find the net for them. Yeah, I told you there was going to be goals in the Crystal Palace Everton game, and I'm picking on it. And there's going to be one more at the end, so just for patience. Through the midfield is where I spent all my money. I got Mohamed Salah and Leroy Sané. Listen, if you don't know their names, get familiar. They're probably one of the best 1-2 combinations on this slate. Defensively, told you, stick with Burnley and Swansea. Pick one from each team, and you'll save a whole bunch of money. I went with Ben Mee at 3,400 and Federico Fernandez at 2,700, 6,100, and I'm done with defense. In goal, I kind of went with the bend don't break kind of defense for goalkeepers. So I went with Rob Elliott at 3,600 against United. United does have enough firepower that they're going to give him some shots, but Elliott has been giving decent enough returns for a Newcastle team that is not great defensively, but he gives you some points. And at 3,600, he's one of the cheapest goalkeepers on the slate. And in util, I loved your tout for Johan Cabaye. I think his 5,800 price tag right now is a bargain. I think he should probably be closer to 8 than 6. But that's just me based on his returns lately. I think because Palace is so bad, nobody's realizing that Cabaye actually has value.
Yep, this is going to look very similar to what Rob just said. We might hang out and talk too much because I have Sané leading the line with Niasse. No true forward for me, but Sané and Niasse leading the line for me. Then Cabaye and Salah in my midfield. Here's where things do change a little bit. I've gone with Moreno, who I touted very highly all over the place. Then defender-goalkeeper duo from Huddersfield, Zonka and Jonas Lossell. And then in util, Demarai Gray, who I said I think could have a sneaky day here against Manchester City. Rob, we have about 30 seconds left. Point total.
It's 7 games on the slate, so there's going to be more options to pick from. It may steal from the points a little bit. I'll go 140.
Yeah, I'm going to go in the 130s. Think there may be some weird guys. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at FPL_MNOP.
Yep, and I'm on Twitter at Kevroff. Be sure to check us out there. Be sure to keep watching here at VIP-bet.com, and we'll catch you next week.
Way to stumble.